All right. Shabbat Shalom, family. Shalom, shalom. Peace and blessings, everybody. Here for another blessed Saturday, another blessed Sabbath, where we're able to learn about the Most High. Um, be thankful and grateful that we woke up today. Appreciative for God's grace and mercy and love. Just for another lesson, for more edification, more knowledge, more wisdom. And when you're out here in this world, like I said, when you're reading the Bible, it's supposed to be for, for yourself, right? Um, to help you better yourself, right? Because you can't better nobody else without bettering yourself. You can't help somebody else. Like when Christ talks about having a thistle or a thorn in your eye, you gotta take that out your eye first before you help somebody get theirs out, right? And it's like a metaphor almost about sin, right? That when you're sinning, right, you can't help nobody else with their sin. Like work on yourself first. Work on yourself first, and then everything will work its way out. When you're working with the Most High, that is. Not when you're working against the Most High, but when you're working with the Most High, right? So today's lesson is about hate, right? What it means to hate. Uh, what is God's idea of hating? Why we shouldn't hate, and then there are things that we actually can hate, though, right? There are things that we can hate, but it's probably not in the same sense as the world tells it, because hate is a very strong word. It's worse than dislike, right? Um, it's like a full disdainment of a disgust or something, right? So let's say I hate, like, I don't know, let's say I hate Twinkies, right? Let's say I hate Twinkies. I mean, I actually want no part of it, right? I don't want nothing to do with it, right? So when people use words, the power is in the tongue. So when people use words or whatnot, they don't realize how much power it has, because, like, say you hate something or you love something, right? It also bleeds into your regular life, right? It bleeds into how you act, what you say, how you treat people. All these things go off a base of how you see the world, right? So, like I said, today's lesson is about hate, and just thinking about how the world hates, how God hates, how a Christian can hate. Somebody's following the Most High. All these things will be discussed today. Not all, but I give a decent amount of scriptures about what hate is going to mean, right? So I'm gonna say the Lord's prayer and get into the lesson, right? Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. All right. So, like I said, it's about hate. And like I said, not realizing when people are like, I hate this, or I hate that, you're speaking in energy. But if you hate something, right, and you hate certain things, right, that's not things that the Most High hates. Like I said, it can bleed into your daily life, right? Even hating yourself. Some people want to hate themselves. And I tell people all the time, got to be careful what you say and how you go about your life. Because let's say you do say you hate yourself, right? You hate yourself, but in reality, is that what you do? So I had to tell my friend yesterday that hating yourself is a demon. There's no question about it, right? Because if you hate yourself, that kind of means you hate God because He created you, right? But let's say you do have this form of hating yourself, right? I don't know what you hate about yourself, but let's say you do hate yourself, right? You got to ask yourself, where's that coming from? Did I look through the scriptures? Did God talk about hating yourself? Did God talk about hating whatever you got going on, whether it's your looks, whether it's your actions, what is all those things you're doing? Do we ever, justify it because of the world, or do we go justify it and figure out what it is according to God, right? And I think that matters the most, because when we look through the Most High, His laws, statutes, and commandments, and see what He wants or what He thinks about the matter, that's always better than what the world will, right? The world will never equate to a perfect being, which is the Most High, right? So started off like this. The first verse is in Proverbs chapter 8. Proverbs chapter 8, verse 13. right? So it reads, the fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride and arrogancy, and the evil way, and the froward mouth do I hate, right? So one thing of fear of the Lord is knowledge, right? Another fear of the Lord is to hate, right? Evil though, right? That's what you can hate. You can hate evil, right? Doesn't mean you hate the person, doesn't mean you hate the animal or whatever's going on, but you should be able to hate evil, right? God hates this and you can hate this too. Now there are some things that God hates that you can't hate, like God hate people, things like that, right? But he's God, so he still has ways and um no limitation, right? He can do whatever he wants. He's the creator. But as us being creation, right? We are allowed to hate evil, right? Pride and arrogancy and the evil way. So we should be okay with hating somebody who wants to do abortions. Not hating the person, but we can hate abortions, right? You can hate pride, whether it's the community or somebody's being real prideful, you can hate that. But you don't hate the person, right? You can hate arrogance, right? You can hate any evil way, whether it's somebody being a drug dealer, whatever the case may be, you can hate evil things, right? Says hate the frown mouth, right? You can hate things people say, right? You know what I'm saying? As long as it's not directed towards the person. Because you got to remember that type of stuff isn't what makes the defile the person is stuff to come out their mouth, right? So they're defiling themselves but not realizing the defilement comes from um, the things they speak, right? The things they speak, the things they do, and usually it's evil, right? All those things is evil, like it says in I want to say it's Mark chapter 7 and Matthew 15. It talks about the things that defile a person, right? But all those things is something that's done outwardly, right? Because you can have thoughts and stuff in your heart, right? But the problem is once you whatever those thoughts are in your heart, when you act upon those, that's what becomes the problem, right? So, like the next scripture, Marie, is in Psalms chapter 97, verse 10. Psalms 97, verse 10, it reads, ye that love the Lord hate evil. He preserveth the souls of his saints. He delivereth them out of the hand of the wicked, right? So if you love God, right? One is that you fear the Lord, that's to hate evil. But also if you love the Most High, you're going to hate evil, right? You're not going to want to do evil. You're not going to want to do these things. Now, do you sin and mess up? Like I said, sure, everybody does, right? But then you shouldn't have no love for that. You shouldn't have a want to do these things, right? Love, um, anything that's wicked, right? Because it says the Lord preserves the soul of his saints, right? And that's more important too, because the soul is, like I said, is deeper on the sense where somebody's loving God and they're doing things, God's going to preserve them for his will. And then after that, you're still here, right? You're still in Abraham's bosom. You're in paradise. You're on the better side of the consequences of a coin, right? I said he delivered by the hand of the wicked. So God can also take you from out of a situation where wickedness is going on. You're around wicked people. But let's say you're opposite and you want to do what the wicked people do. Like I said, there's consequences for it, right? Because in reality, you're not showing other Christians, you're not showing God, you're not showing people who follow the Most High that that's who you are. You're not separating yourself from being holy and unholy, right? So these are a few things that the Lord hate. We've covered this before, but it's always good to go over stuff again. So this is in Proverbs chapter 6, verses 16 through 19. Proverbs chapter 6, verses 16 through 19. It reads, these six things doeth the Lord hate. Yeah, seven are abomination unto him. A proud look, which is pride, we read earlier. A lying tongue, a hand that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked imaginations, feet that be swift and run into mischief, a false witness that speaketh lies, and he that soweth discord among brothers, right? All these things is considered evil, right? So these are things that we should hate. Like I said, we should hate prideness, lying, innocent blood, whether it's babies or whoever, somebody that's innocent and they're dying for no reason. Devices of wicked imaginations, feet that run into mischief, like being messy, which we talked about last week. A false witness that speak of lies, and somebody that saw a discord among brother, right? So all these things is something that we should hate, right? Because it's actually all these things is evil. None of these things are profitable, none of these are prosperous. Um, when you're following the Lord, like I used to hear, cheaters never prosper, right? That's true, right? They don't prosper, but they do win, right? But then you got to think about it is what do you want? Do you want to win, or do you want to be prosperous? Do you want to be profitable, right? Or do you do you want to be unprofitable? And like I said, what that means is some people do a lot, whether it's working a job, um, working overtime, extra, they gotta get money, gotta get money, gotta get money. Cool, no problem, right? But at some point, sometimes God may not want you to get that money, right? He wants you to focus on Him, focus on this. You need money, you need these things. But like I said, when you taking all these other steps, does it profit you, right? I know people who have friends who've made, millions of dollars in the last couple 10 years, got nothing to show for it, right? So you're winning, but nothing's prosperous, right? Because nothing is through the Most High. So just think about, like I said, when you're doing stuff, is it considered evil? Is it something that God look at as evil? Because if it's quote unquote evil, and that's something that God wouldn't want you to do, right? Now it's in the realm of hate, right? Whether it's a person or it's a thing, right? And then when it comes to hate, now you gotta look at yourself on a deeper level, right? Because hate is, like I said, is some type of disgust. Like, are you look at this person? Do you see disgust? Do you look at your wife? Do you look at your husband? Do you look at your brother? Do you look at your mother? Do you look at your friends, coworkers? Do you see disgust in somebody? Right? Because that's pretty strong, right? But you can be disgusted in evil things, which I agree. I used to partake in evil things, but now when I look back and I'm outside of that world, I can look at an evil thing and be like, "Nah, that's crazy," right? But that's how the Lord wants you to see, the world, right? So next is Psalms chapter 11, chapter 11, verse 5. Psalms 11, verse 5. And this reads, "The Lord trieth the righteous, but the wicked and him that loveth violence, his soul hateth," right? So this is talking about God, right? So God hates the ones who love the violence and the wickedness. So God is able to hate souls, right? We're not able to hate this. And there's a distinction, right? When I read up earlier, when I was like the fear of the Lord, or you that love the Lord hate evil, right? But it's giving you the context of what it is, right? So even though we can hate the evil, we can't hate the person. God can hate whoever he wants to, right? He can hate the people he make, all that. He can do that, right? Because it's his creation. Just like if Steve Jobs said he hated the iPhone, or let's say one of you guys made an invention, you can hate it as much as you want to. I make music, and sometimes, I don't like that song, or I don't like this and that, but it's my creation. I can do that, right? Same thing here, but you didn't create me. You didn't create, that person or this person. You didn't create the animal. You didn't create nothing in the earth, right? You shouldn't hate it, right? But you can hate the things about things like far as, like I said, the sin or the ways, because that's the problem, right? Somebody's lying, yeah, you can hate liars, right? But you don't hate the individual person. You just hate the thought of lying, right? You hate the thought of somebody being proudful. You hate the thought of people being innocently killed, right? Their blood being shed. Those are things you can hate, but don't hate the people, because if we hate people because of the sins they commit, then we definitely should hate ourselves. We should hate every single body, every single person, because everybody's committed a sin. So I can't hate nobody for nothing they done to me, right? People done could have robbed me, made an attempt on my life. I can't hate them, right? I can hate the act that they tried to do, but I can't hate them, right? And that would show your spiritual growth when you're in this journey about forgiveness, right? Forgiveness, repentance, these things, because you can repent for things, right? So let's say I commit an act, right, and I repent from it. Repentance is not about just saying that I'm not going to do that no more. Repentance is the part where you choose to live the life the different way, right? When people get baptized, they get baptized and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm clean," but it doesn't matter if you're clean because your heart ain't clean, right? You got to get your flesh circumcised, and you got to get your heart. And most people don't change their heart, right? They're still dirty within themselves, right? They can read, you can go to church all the time, you can pray, you can do all those things and still have a dirty heart, right? Still have an unclean heart. David talks about, having his heart being clean from the sins he committed, right? And that's something that you should think about daily about having an unclean heart. Because, like I said, 9 times out of 10, when your heart is unclean like that, there's hate somewhere, right? Whether it's hating yourself, hating people, or whatever. But when you hate yourself, like I said, I think this is all demonic, right? Because these are bad things, right? There's nothing beneficial if we're killing innocent children. There's nothing beneficial if you lying to somebody. There's nothing beneficial if you being proud, right? Because you're not God and you can get knocked down. Like, somebody thought it was prideful was Lucifer. Well, he got punished for that too, right? There can only be one proud person, and that person or being is the Most High. So just think about those things when you're, weighing evil or whatnot through hate. So the next verse and chapter is Psalms 119, verse 163. So 119, verse 163. And this reads, I hate and abhor lying, but thy law do I love, right? So like I said, these are things you can hate, right? He didn't speak about hating nobody. This is a moment in time where you're hating the evil. You're hating something that causes problems, right? Which lying does. I don't care if it's a small little, what do they call it, a white lie. A white lie is crazy in itself, but just that phrasing. But even if it's a small little lie or a big lie, it's still a lie, right? Because now, like I said, people act upon these lies and violence and so much more. Because usually when it's a lie, the truth is suppressed or mixed in. So now just more lies create more chaos, more confusion, and so forth. But when the truth is told, it's not the same. But I realize when I watch TV or, be amongst the world, lies is really what, you know, is what people are drawn to, right? They're drawn to the entertainment, the drama, all the messiness is filled. It's all filled with evil, like regardless of what somebody thinks, it's all filled with evil. Because when it's truthful, a lot of things get simmered down and eliminated really quickly, right? But when it's lies involved, I know myself been in situations where I was lying, right? When there's lies involved, things can escalate and things like that. So now this is where, like I said, you go right back into that world of hate because it's something we should hate. So now you hating lies, right? But you go beyond the lie and you hate the person. And now you hate the person, you're gonna look at this person differently. You're gonna treat this person differently, right? Somebody could lie to me like people lie to me about Christmas. My parents lie to me about Christmas. I ain't gonna hate my parents, right? I mean, it's messed up they lie, but it is what it is, right? I can't hate them, right? Because they're lying and they're thinking it's a good reason to lie. It's not, but they're thinking it's a good reason. So also I gotta look at that. But the lie, oh, I hate it. I hate Christmas. I hate all these things. These are lies, right? But I can't hate the person because, like I said, once I hate the person, that shows some type of disgust, disdain. It shows a lot of things directed towards a person, right? But like I said, everybody make mistakes. So if I hate them for lying, but then I turn around and lie to somebody else, I gotta have that same energy and hate myself, right? But it says the law do I love, right? You should love the law, right? And that's the opposite of the hate, right? So you should hate the things that's evil, but you should love the law because the law is good, right? The law is profitable for you. It's beneficial for you, right? And some people use scriptures like they was talking about Paul when they say like all things are expedient to me, all things ain't lawful. That's true, right? Because expedient means you can just have access to it, right? You gotta be careful how you use your words. You can have access to a lot of things, but that don't mean it's good for you. It's beneficial because it might not benefit you fleshly, for the most part, it's not going to benefit you fleshly, and it's definitely going to benefit you spiritually, right? And that could cause a problem when you're, like I said, going through life. So the reason why the law should be loved, the reason why the law should be followed, the reason why the law should be studied and spread upon everybody, right, is because that's the way of the perfect life. That's the way of the better life. That's the way of the life without the sorrows and all the pain. That's the way with the life with the comfort, right? That's the way of life. The law is perfect, right? It says in the Psalms, the law is perfect. The problem is we try to make loopholes around the law. This ain't America's law. This ain't Iran's law. This ain't Israel. This ain't none of those laws. This is God's law, right? They always say Moses' law. It's not Moses' law. Moses didn't make up the law. He got it from God. This is God's law, and there's no loopholes in God's. But most people, when they're doing things in the world, they try to find loopholes, right? Because loopholes are more like shortcuts. Another word for saying shortcuts. You try to find a loophole in the world, right? So instead of you just speeding or stop speeding, right? What you do, you get a license plate blocker, cover your license plate up, right? So you still doing this and that. Then when you crash, it's somebody else's fault. It's not your fault. It's somebody else's fault, right? Let alone you endanger yourself. Okay, cool, but then you endanger others, right? You do so many different things because you try to find like a loophole through the law. It'd be just okay if everybody followed the law. Nobody was speeding. Nobody was doing this. Nobody was doing that. Like I said, the problem is that people try to find loopholes, and you try to find loopholes in God's law. That's a problem. So now that you're trying to find a loophole in God's law, you kind of hate God, right? You kind of hate the things that He stands for. He hates evil. You actually hate good. You actually hate construction. You actually hate structure. You actually hate boundaries. You hate God. You may not see it that way, but you hate God. I was telling one of my fellow Christian friends yesterday. We was talking about how women want this perfect person, right? A lot of women want perfect. Not all women, but most of them, right? Or even a man who wants a perfect woman, right? This perfect person that has to have everything that they want. Check this, because you want the devil, because he's the only person that can provide you with that kind of perfection. When God sends you somebody or something that's perfect, it's not in the package that you see it in. It's the package that's best for your needs, right? For what you're doing. Now, mind you, you want an attractive person, God's going to make him attractive to you because beauty is subjective. You want somebody that's comfort you, God will send you somebody that's going to comfort you because it's subjective, right? All these things can be subjective, but God knows the perfect fit. We, on the other hand, we don't see it that way. We look at people and want what we want, right? You want perfection, you want the devil, you want a demon, and that's the reason why you can't be satisfied in what you do, right? But it's all because you hate God, you hate the law, you hate the way His ways, right? You don't see it that way because, like I said, the world doesn't expound on it that way. But that's what you deliberately do. You're hating God by not wanting to follow His instructions, right? So the next verse is talking about more lying. It's this Proverbs chapter 26, verses 24 through 26. So Proverbs 26, verses 24 through 26. Some good watermelon juice right there, man. I gotta get that. Watermelon juice and pineapple does wonders. It reads, He that hateth dissembleth with his lips, and layeth up deceit within him. When he speaketh fair, believe him not, for there are 7 abominations in his heart, whose hatred is covered by deceit. His wickedness shall be showed before the whole congregation. Right? So this is talking about somebody um, who really has hatred, but it's covered by deceit. Like I said, a lot of people hate things, but they cover them, right? They mask people. Like, I don't agree on dating no more. You want to get somebody, I don't think you should date them. If you're already with them, I guess it's too late, and you talk to God and find out. But the reason why I say that is because a lot of people always put on the best them, or try to put on the best them, right? You meet somebody, oh, they're perfect, right? They just doing all these other things, but they really being deceitful because they really got hatred amongst themselves. You just don't know it, and then later it starts showing. Why this person did this? Why this person did that? Same thing when you go to like a mechanic shop or something, right? Oh, we got, you know, you see the sign, they'd be like, oh, we do oil changes for 39.99, right? And when you get there, oh, you got an Audi A8, so that's 109.99. But the sign say, oh, that's just for basic cars, but you ain't put that there. Or you have like a advertisement on the TV, they be like, oh yeah, 4% interest and all that, but you got them real tiny words at the bottom. They're not gonna tell you that. Right, and the commercials so fast you can't even see it. I mean, nowadays you can pause TV, stuff like that. But when I was younger, you couldn't do all that. Right, so just think about how somebody's doing something. There's usually deceit. That's how Satan works. Right, it's the deceit. I'm gonna tell you what you want to hear, but there's also parts that you're not gonna hear and not gonna know about. But you'll find out about them later because I'm gonna bring them to you and present it. And just like it's saying, if somebody has evil, eventually it's gonna be showed in front of the whole congregation. I had evil before, and it was showed in front of the whole congregation. Right, can't hide those type of things, right? Now, mind you, I didn't even have hatred. At least I thought I didn't, but then I did because I had hatred towards God's law, right? And eventually it got showed in front of the congregation, right? So I got exposed or whatnot. And this is before I had, the church, and God blessed me with the church. I was just really amongst brothers, but the congregation is a gathering, and I was exposed in front of that, right? But the hatred was covered by the deceit because, like I said, I hated God's law because I'm actually breaking God's law. I'm doing things I know I'm not supposed to do. Still, running around doing whatever. but I'm being deceitful about it. So I'm telling this person this just so it can cover up. Some people may know, some people may not, but I'm living in deceit. It shouldn't be like that. Now, can somebody know my personal business? You know what I'm saying, or your personal business? That you do every day. No, that's not necessary, right? But when you're living and you have sins amongst yourself and you're living in them sins, oh, they're gonna show up eventually, right? One way or another. It might show up now, it might show up later, but it's gonna show up if you constantly stay in them. That's why God wants you to come up out of it. Because if you don't come up out of it, it's going to spill over. Because it's going to be hard for you to try to keep up, sinning anyway. That wouldn't be really a good idea for you to do, right? So the next one, it goes online a little more. This is Proverbs chapter 10, verse 18. So Proverbs chapter 10, verse 18. It says, "He that hideth hatred with lying lips, and he that uttereth slander is a fool." Right. So you, like I said, that goes tying in with Proverbs the 26. It's talking about somebody who's hiding their hatred. You know what I'm saying? Because people have hatred all the time. I've experienced it in my life. And the line of the lips is what it is, right? Because so many people, especially nowadays, they go out of words. Oh, do you love me? You say you love me, X, Y, Z. Nobody cares what you say, right? Because your actions going to show, which is the fruit. Christ tell you, judging by their fruit, which has always been the case, right? We just so tying a word. That's why people, you just call somebody ugly or call somebody a bad name or slander and it hurt, right? I was one of the people like you couldn't affect me like that. Like let's say a white person called me the N word, okay, and then what? If you touch me, that was a different situation because I feel like I defend myself. But when you attract yourself to those things, right? Because a lot of times they lies anyway. People just lying to get you, stir up. But then sometimes the lie may have a little truth in it because it's something that you're bothered by. It's something um, that you deal with a struggle with insecurity or something, right? So now somebody can play off that. So while they're playing off that, right, it's really hatred towards you, like I said. But they'll mask the self in front of you. Oh, I like this and like that. Like Joe Biden, I guess he supposed to like black people. If you don't vote for him, you ain't black. Let alone, I've seen videos about him calling us monkeys and all kinds of stuff. Then he also went to a KKK rally and did a eulogy or something for the Grand Wizard Duke, whatever his name is. There's no way that you're telling me that you like black people because your actions so different, right? I don't care what you say, but that's an example of how people live, right? And what happens is the lips, right? People they say so much stuff, it just sounds beautiful. People are so amazed by words. That's why Satan is able to deceive people, right? He's very good with wordplay. And I know this myself because I have that ability. I can manipulate people if I wanted to, but I choose to use my words that I speak to, push positivity, push good, to speak about the word. But I know that people are very, very, keen to somebody, how somebody talk, how somebody speak, right? Pastors, when you go to a lot of churches, not all, but most, they put them through a speech school, right, to teach you how to speak to people, right? It's a reason why these teachers like Joel Osteen, they so well spoken. Barack Obama, they're not just talking because somebody's teaching them how to talk. Somebody's teaching them how to sway crowds. Somebody's teaching them how to manipulate, right? It's an ability, that a lot of people don't have. But you know what happens? You hear somebody talking, and you just Martin Luther King. You just amazed by him, right? And they could be one of the biggest sinners in the world, but all you heard was what they said, right? And that's what you're basing it off of. And if you don't have the evidence to show, or you're not looking for the evidence about them doing bad, it doesn't matter. Let's say you do find the evidence of doing bad, it still don't matter, right? Because you'll just feel like where everybody makes mistakes, which we do, right? But at what point does this person get a pass? Because if you're looking at what they say and what they do, they're going back to the hate thing. They actually hate God, right? Because they don't hate evil, they're doing evil, doing it willingly, right? It's a difference between making a mistake and making a sin compared to living in it, living amongst the wicked. So two different lifestyles, right? Sinning willfully and sinning because temptation got the best of you. It's a total different situation. It's not the same thing. So in Psalms 26, and this is kind of one of them, Psalms 26, verses 4 through 5. This is a good example about this, right? Psalms 26, verses 4 through 5. It reads, I have not sat with vain persons, neither will I go in with dissemblers. I have hated the congregation of evildoers, and will not sit with the wicked, right? So this is the thing. You think that you hanging around evil people or useless people or people who do these type of things, you think that make you better? It's actually going to make you worse, right? But then let's say you think that you think it's okay, right? No fine, because you know they say Christ was with the sinners too. He is with the sinners, right? But he's not with the sinners while they're doing sinful actions, because when he catch somebody doing sinful action, he always addresses it. You know, when the girl was supposed to be up for committing adultery, he's like, okay, cool, I'll stone her with the other person, right? He was ready to be just, because that's what he is, right? He got to be like his dad, like his father. He's ready to be just. Or when the Pharisees and the money changers, they over here, selling the doves to people and getting people to buy the animals so they can sacrifice the animals that they making money off of. He flips the tables, right? Because he's catching them in the act. But when they're talking about him sitting with the public and stuff, that doesn't mean he's sitting here dealing with them while they're doing crime. It doesn't mean he's sitting there doing uh, evil stuff with them, right? Because at some point in time, you got to be able to talk to them, right? So if I'm talking and somebody come up as evil and they want to listen, that's okay. But to go into the strip club and think that I'm doing God's work is crazy. To go on the street where all the drug dealers at and do that is crazy. To go sit inside the pharmacy where they killing people, that's crazy. Like all these things is crazy, right? But it doesn't mean that they couldn't hear because let's say you was talking about and they came around. That's the difference, right? Somebody who's sitting amongst people who doing evil and think it's okay, you're evil too. You just don't know it, or you don't think you are because you're like, well, I don't do this and that, but you're around them, right? It's okay for you to do this, or you're around them. It's just that plain and simple. You know what's going on over there overseas right now, and I'm like, well, y'all was with them the whole time anyway. Y'all tied to this place. Y'all donate to to the country. Now they want to start another war. Don't back up now, right? Because you don't even realize you was always with the evil. Don't even realize you was with the evil, right? Because they've been telling you something, telling you something, telling you something, and you ain't even gonna check out their fruit. You ain't check out their fruit, none of their labors, none of that. You just listening to what somebody tell you. That could be some of the worst things you do. Because like I said, you probably don't realize how much you are sitting amongst the wicked. So I know myself, or somebody I know, they could have been a friend, in the past, or somebody I just may know. You want to come out to the party? No. Want to come to the club? No, because I know what it entails. It don't entail nothing I'm into. You want to go to an anime party watching One Piece? Oh yeah, I'm there. You want to go to Naruto? I'm there. You want to come to this place where we all smoking? No, I'm not. I don't do that. Right? Or you want to come to this party where you all getting drunk? No, I don't do that. You want to come to a party with all these girls and stuff dancing? No, I don't do that. Because I've done that before though. Right? I've done that before, but that was in my time. I didn't know no better. But now that I do know better, I can't indulge and engage in those type of things. Right? It's just not gonna work for me. So next is Philippians chapter 2, verse 3. Philippians 2, verse 3. It says, let nothing be done through strife or vain glory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem other better than themselves, right? So this is saying when you're doing something, you always put someone else better than yourself, right? Because, like I said, it's how you would to go the rule. You treat yourself how you want to be treated. So you can't treat somebody bad and they get mad if they, react bad like you was doing. I mean, that's what you've been doing, right? You can't talk to somebody crazy and they're not talking to you crazy and then get mad when they start talking to you crazy. You already putting out that energy, right? So you treat somebody like you want to treat yourself. So in reality, you should treat people better than you would treat yourself, right? Because it's like a lowly form of meekness, right? It's just the best form of meekness. It says nothing be done through strife or vainglory, right? Vainglory is useless glory, and strife is like evil or contention, right? Because like I said, when you're doing stuff out of hate or you're doing stuff for no reason, that's a problem. Like for instance, like a girl will go through a guy's phone, right? This is one of the stupidest things in the world. You go through my phone and try to catch me cheating, right? But then you catch me cheating, but you still stay, right? So now you use this as a catalyst to hold over my head. That's so dumb. If you didn't want me cheating on you, that was your thing. Just leave, right? And I think God will accept that, right? I think He'll accept a lot of things, but it's just leave, right? But now there's no glory in this. All this is vain. All this is strife. You don't see it that way, but the world has allowed you to say that's cool, right? I be seeing like on Instagram, like you go on like TikTok videos, stuff like that, or YouTube, as people send me stuff, right, all the time.
I see these things and it's just like such drama filled things, right? But you'll still stay with this person. You'll still indulge. I saw this girl. She had all these bruises all over her, and then I didn't even understand it. Like you got these bruises, and you on the thing, and you're telling people about relationships. Your relationship is terrible right now. Like you're getting abused. Like you're getting abused really badly, right? But everything is done because all this is done through hate, right? This is done through hate, regardless of saying, because hate, it falls in a different categories. Like I said, lying to somebody, mistreating people, being proud, all that's tied into hate, right? And now you kind of, you almost in the verge of hating yourself. Because I was telling my friend, I don't think you should hate yourself, right? And I don't think that's something that's a godly. God don't put that type of spirit in us. I think that's the devil, right? Because when you hate yourself, then you got suicide options, you got all these things come about. But usually when you hate yourself, it's because somebody doesn't like something about you, right? And it makes you not like something about yourself. Oh, I like boys with short haircuts. Your hair ain't short, your hair long. You know what you're gonna do? Get a haircut. Because you hate yourself because you think that's how you get girls. I have never in my life said I hated myself. Before God, now with God, I never thought about that. Right? Cause I had low self esteem for sure, but I've never hated myself, right? Or ever said that I hate this or hate that or hate what I've done, right? Now when I think about it, I might have hated what I've done because now I see it as evil, yeah, of course. But nothing I've done to hate myself or even hated a person. I don't think I've ever really hated a person either, right? Because at the end of the day, what am I supposed to do about if I hate a person? Live on this, think about this when I wake up? Nah, man, that's stupid, right? We bigger than that as people, and we should be better than that as people and followers of Christ. Right? If you don't follow Christ, I totally get it. I understand why you hate people. Cool. Right? I didn't do that, but I don't think you should. But I can see when you outside of God. But if you with the Most High, none of these things should even be a thing. If you say you're a Christian, none of these things should even be a same thing. I know so many people that's in churches and they church members don't like each other. They can't stand each other. Right? I'm thankful and blessed enough when when I have gatherings, everybody in the church is happy, hugs and loves and kisses. Like that's beautiful, right? Right. And mind you, it could be later on that there might be tears amongst the weeks. That's part of it. It's part of it. But just to see people trying to follow the Most High, that's a beautiful thing. So the next one is John chapter 15, verses 18 and 19. John 15, verses 18 and 19. It's on the screen. Yeah. It says, if the world hates you, ye know that it hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love his own. But because you are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hated you. I can speak to this for myself, right? When it says the world, this is a broad sense of like a totality of people. Every time the world is used in the Bible, it's not about the globe, right? Globe, flat earth, whatever one you want to use. It's not about everybody on this rock. It's talking about the people who are opposite of God, because God hates the world, so they hate Christ. If you follow Christ by default, they're gonna hate you. Period. Right? But you know this because when the things that you do, right, the things that you do, you'll see that it's actually against what they want to do. This is when you become hateful. Somebody that doesn't like abortions, all these other things, people hate them, right? But they don't hate them because it's wrong. They don't hate them because they're actually doing something right. They hate them because that's not how the world is working. Satan don't work like that, right? So that's almost showing of the Christ in you. Now, whether you know you following Christ or not, because you can do laws without knowing like the Gentiles do, but the world hates you because of that, right? But they hate you because they don't necessarily hate you directly, even though they are hating you. They're hating you because they hate God. Like Christ said, they hated me first. So I know they're gonna hate you. So they already hate those laws we was talking about. So just by default, they're gonna hate you because you're opposite of what they want to do. You're opposite of all the loopholes they're trying to break. You're opposite of this freedom that they have, right? Just thinking about it like this. When you with the most high, it's like I don't know if you ever had parents that like say you go outside because I know I have boundaries, right? But when I think about it, the boundaries are beneficial, and I could instill them into my children if God blesses me with some, right? When I was younger, all the kids used to ride bikes. All the children around the neighborhood used to ride bikes. I wanted to ride bikes too, but you know what happened? My parents, I had to wear a helmet, I had to wear elbow pads, wristbands, and all that. And at first, I didn't want to wear it, right? Because it makes you not look cool. All other kids don't have them, X, Y, Z. But then I think about it, man, the stuff I was doing on the bike, I done hit my head on the pole, X, Y, Z, and I fell on the ground, And a lot of the times, I was saved for the most part when I had this stuff on. But you know when I got hurt the most? When I didn't have it on. Every time I didn't have my helmet on, XYZ. So it's a boundary, and God puts boundaries on us. That don't mean we can't get freedom, because I can ride the bike just like the other kids, but he like would ride the bike this way, right, with this equipment on. But when you're on the street, you can't go a certain far because God can't see you, right? Your parents can't see you. Same thing. Satan don't care about you. He's the child. I used to be over to some of my friends' house when I was younger. They doing whatever. We can smoke in the house, drink. Parents ain't home. I'm like, well, it's almost like one of these little cartoons like Dora Explorer. On where your parents at? You just out here just doing whatever you want to do. You ain't got no structure. That's Satan, right? He don't want you to have parents. He don't. He your parent, and he lets you do whatever you want to do. And you know what happens? People feed into that because, like I said, you become part of the world. So now you're going to hate what's good. You're going to hate what's righteous, right? Because you don't realize you're living and you're with nothing but unrighteousness, right? That's how you're living. That's how you're going to end up, right, in a bad situation because you're following that way of living. So next is Ephesians chapter 5, verse 29 and 30. Ephesians 5, 29, verse 30. It says, "For no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourisheth and cherisheth, even as the Lord the church. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones." So when you hate yourself, you kind of hate God. Because if you're supposed to be a member of the church, you're supposed to be following Christ, right? And this is our temple, but our temple actually belongs to the Most High. But you hate your temple, when you hate yourself, you actually hate God. See what I'm saying? Still go back to the same thing. You still hating God in some way because now you're not appreciative, you're ungrateful, you have a disdain for yourself, a disgust, right? But this ain't one of the things God say disgust. He never said he hated the person, right? Even though he hates people that do wicked things, right? He not hating you for making a sin or making a mistake. Can he be mad, upset? Yeah, I mean that's cool. He can be disappointed, but he don't hate you, right? And the fact that he don't hate you is because that's what grace is for, mercy. Because the people who have done in the Bible have done things that God didn't approve. David did things God didn't approve of. Moses, Jonah. I mean, the list go on. Almost everybody that's in the book, besides Christ, did something that God didn't approve of. He still stayed with him. Even Saul, right? Saul had multiple chances to just get it together. He still was staying with Saul. And Saul wasn't even the person he wanted to be king. He knew he picked. That's what the people picked. And he still was staying with Saul. So even when somebody is doing bad or whatnot, God can still be with you, right? But the problem is, do we change? Do we get ourselves better? So if you hate yourself, how can you hate yourself, right? And then call yourself a member of Christ? How could you hate yourself and call yourself a son of God? How could you hate yourself and call yourself a member of the church? Because like I said, you hate yourself, you hate God, right? But like I said, if somebody said that they hate themselves, I believe there's a demon right next to you. I don't care what nobody tells me. I started learning that when I'm talking to somebody and they're being mean, they're being disrespectful, all these things, that's a demon. Now, whether they tell me they say it's a demon or not, that's their own business. I believe it's a demon because if it's not a demon and that's all you, or you're really in a bad situation, right? Because you out of connectivity. It's almost like you're not on either side, which is the worst thing you can be on. If you're gonna be on the side, at least pick a side, but don't be in the middle because now you don't want to be nobody. Nobody wants you. You know that means God would want you because I mean you don't want Him, and the devil don't want you, right? Because you're not really beneficial to him. It's cool though because you're actually going against God, and He like cool, but He also want people He can just use too. Using His plan to push it forward. You just in the middle. You're in a bad situation, but I just contribute that to a demon, right? Contribute that to an entity. Because, like I said, how could you, like I said, hate yourself? What about you hate yourself? Like girls who gets BBLs and all this other stuff. Before the big butts was in style, was you thinking about getting a bigger butt? Yeah, you might have wanted it, but what happened? You saw a girl with a guy that you like, and that's what you wanted, right? But not even realizing that might not even be the type of guy you need. And then you can look back later, she probably not even with that guy, or she is, or she could be miserable, right? All this is based off of how you view how other people see you. You have a view how you see yourself. You have a view how the Most High views you, right? So now you have a self hate, but I'm telling you, the self hate got to be coming from somebody on your shoulder, right? You just may not hear it because people are looking for like the cartoon. You're looking for the actual thing, the devil with an angel on your shoulder, but it come in different forms. It may come through social media now. It come to the internet, Chat GPT. Like they making videos, AI videos, and some of them look real. I can tell the difference though, but some of them look real. And people really believe it. They're like, "Is this real or not?" I'm like, "Yeah, you ain't know what's real or not." But look where you're going to for your information, your knowledge. All your stuff is from the internet. Open up a book. Go visit the person across the street. Go out to the church or go out somewhere, grocery store, meet somebody. Ain't no AI there. But when you on this technology, on this phone and stuff, man, you gonna be in a world of trouble, right? A whole world of trouble. So just the top on that, right? This is Proverbs chapter 15, verses 32 and 33. And this goes along with Ephesians about the hating of yourself, right? So Proverbs chapter 15, verse 32 and 33, it reads, He that refuseth instruction despiseth his own soul, but he that heareth reproof getteth understanding. The fear of the Lord is instruction of wisdom, and before honor is humility, right? So before you can be honorable, you gotta be humble, right? You gotta have that humility to be low. But it says when you despise of instruction, right? You despise of instruction, that's a problem in itself. Because when you're despising instruction, right, you kind of rebellious. You want that freedom back. There's no boundary. This is also talking about God's instruction though. But you refuse instruction, so now you despise your own soul because you don't even realize the instruction is to better your soul, but you don't want it, right? And you despise it. You hate instruction. Like I said, hate is a pretty big key. People always talk about love, 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 and you ain't talking about hate. Not realizing how much hate is in the world because people hate without knowing because of the way they're living their life. Right? Like I said, just not following God's instruction is considered hate. Right? We got to stop looking at or coming up with all these sayings like when they were saying, "Well, God don't give me nothing more than I can bear." That's not true. The Bible don't say nothing about that. He'll give you way more than you can bear, right? And not that you can't bear him, but it's for you to rely back on him so he can help you out in the situation, right? But he puts people through all types of stuff, right? It ain't like, oh, I can't bear this, or you gonna bear today, right? And you gonna have this burden or whatever, what the case may be. Now, mind you, he said this burden is light. So to him, he think that's real light, which is, when you follow him, that's how light his burden is. So just imagine if you think that was rough, just imagine the burden that Satan will give you, right? But people don't see it because they also see all the wants and um, all these things in it or whatever the case may be, and they're not understanding because everybody see the world different. I saw this video before I started the lesson today, and this guy was talking about Michael Jordan. He said he saw him, and and he was smoking a cigar. I guess this is during like one of the finals or something. He was in a hotel room, and he said he just looked so sad. And he was like, and Mike told him, you don't want to be me, right? And he was like, you did all that hard work, X, Y, Z, playing basketball just to have your name in the banners. And people in the comments is like, yeah, he the greatest person to play a game, X, Y, Z, and all this other stuff. Like he stamped his legacy. But I was like, yeah, but at what cost? Right? Everybody he talked to, you Michael Jordan, they find you Michael Jordan, every girl he talked to, they gonna want his money, right? Everybody is seeing want to autograph. You didn't have regular life no more, right? And don't get it twisted. You can love basketball and you wanted to be the greatest and all that, but you don't realize while you was doing that what you sacrificed, right? You sacrificed a lot to do that, and now that you did it, you can't undo it, right? You can be famous, but you can't be unfamous. You can be infamous, but you can't be unfamous. So now you always gonna be known, or whatever the case may be, because somebody to be at the pinnacle of the sport, regarded as one of the best people, will tell you don't want his life. And Michael Jordan's a billionaire, billionaire. I mean, I didn't brought Michael Jordan shoes, all that. It's just to show you that the world we live in, like I said, it's very tricky and deceitful because that's Satan runs everything, right? And with him running everything, it's easy to fall in these traps. It's easy to be, stuck in evil. It's easy to go to the bad way. The path is really broad, right? And the path can look nice, right? It can seem nice, even though the narrow path is that. But like I said, that narrow path is narrow because there's boundaries involved. When you don't have those boundaries involved, a lot of bad things can happen, right? So when I go to Romans 12 and chapter 12, verse 9, that's the next scripture. It talks about us cleaving on to what's good, right? It says, let love be without dissimulation. Abhor that which is evil, which is hate, and cleave to that which is good, right? So we should always, like I said, go towards the good and hate that which is evil. Because like I said, when you try to mix the two, or you think you're good and then you do a little bit of evil and you're going towards that, you don't see it, right? This girl was talking to me at work and she said something about a tattoo. And I told her I'm not getting no tattoos no more. Even if I probably wasn't following God, I probably wouldn't get no more. Because after a while, I started realizing tattoos are like one of the most vain things you can ever do. And I said, first of all, it's useless. And she was like, it's art. I was like, it is art. I also got a sketchbook and an iPad I could just draw on. I said, it is art, but art for who? Some tattoos you get, you can't even see, right? So people get tattoos on their back, and then they have it, right? They forgot about it, right? Because it's not. So it's art to people outside, but when it is, now that's you seeking attention, right? It's vain. It's vain. It's useless. But in her brain, that was cool and accepted. And I'm not mad because I don't believe she's, you know, in church or anything like that. I can't be mad at that, right? So I can see it from her side of view because I was once in those shoes, right? But it's outside of God. So when you outside of God, you really can't tell what's evil and good because the world makes up what's evil and good. I used to argue with this guy or debate with this guy with my brother. Me and my brother used to debate with these guys, and they always tell me like, we was like, where do you get your morals from? Or we just make them up as people. Okay, that's cool. You make up morals as people, you make up rules, then you really can't say that my rules are wrong, regardless of what you say, majority vote, whatever, because we make up the rules ourselves, and there is no supreme authority or rules of morality or anything. There are no rules. That's literally how this works. It's either a God and there's rules, or there is no God and there is no rules. And the rules are how we make it accordingly. So you fighting for, you complaining about Trump, you complain about this, you shouldn't be. You're stupid. You don't even realize how stupid you are because you're not. There is no supreme authority, so rules doesn't matter. You couldn't tell me it's illegal to talk to somebody who's 16 years old. You want to know why? Because you talk to somebody who's 16 years old, even if you like 17, I think it's considered statutory rape, depending on where you at, right? You couldn't talk to somebody that's 17, that's statutory rape, right? You couldn't have sex with them. I'm sorry. So you can have like kissing and stuff like that, but you couldn't have sexual intercourse, right? But check this out. Let's say I'm 40 and the girl's 16. If I ask her parents for marriage legally, they can give her up. She's still 16, and I'm 40 years old or 50 years old. No matter how old I am, I just push the chart up to the highest degree you can be. Look how the law just how stupid the law is. So somebody that was 1 year older than her still go to the same school, still in high school together, couldn't talk to her because it wasn't done through a legal matter. Like I said, so when rules come in effect, they're anything, right? Because all this is outside of God. And that's the problem. When you're outside of God, you can't decipher what's evil and good. You can't decipher what's love and hate. Right? People say love is love. Okay, cool, love is love. But then when somebody wants to mess with little kids, it's not love no more. Make your mind up. Somebody want to mess with animals, it's not love no more. You can't have all these rules because all you're doing is pushing up. You pushing it. You're the Pandora's box. I tell you all the time. Once you open the box, everything come out. You can't just keep one demon in. I play video games. They open this box up, everything come out. All the monsters, Poseidon, Zeus, everybody come out. You can't just let one of them out. Ain't no ticket master, demon holder. It's you open the box, everything comes out, right? But it goes back to like I said, what you hate. You don't realize unwillingly, right, or unknowingly, you hate God, right? Unknowingly, you serve the devil. I told one of our friends that one time he freaked out, called me, he was upset. Do you serve God? You serve the devil? Yeah, you do, because you're unwillingly or unknowingly doing these things. Sometimes you're doing it knowingly, you just don't care because you have a problem for God's laws and God's instructions, right? So the last verse is Psalms chapter 45, verse 7. Psalms 45, verse 7. It says, Thou lovest righteousness and hatest wickedness. Therefore, God, thy God, have anointed thee with the oil of gladness above thy fellows, right? So you love righteousness, you hate wicked, God anoints you, right? He anoints you with the oil and the gladness above people, right? And people are like, oh, you can't be above me. Well, God can do that. He could put people above people. Deuteronomy 7 and 6, right? It says the Israel's a holy people, and God's was putting them in a place to be above people, right? But not being above people as I'm boasting because I'm better than you, whatever. He put them in a position to have subjection because that's all it is, right? God, and you got Christ, you got angels who do their Christ is in God's bidding, and then you got people, right? There's a hierarchy, right? And you have to understand that's how it works. Even with the devil, they got hierarchies. It's Satan, and then all his little minions. And then his minions got minions, and they minions got minions, and they got soldiers. Everything is a hierarchy. See, people be thinking like evil is just people just disobeying law. Okay, cool. That's on the low level, right? Because you don't know what's going on. You understand, but on the high level of the construction, it's structure behind it. You think all these buildings and all these rituals and all these occults and all these societies, the Masons. Do you think that's made up just because somebody's doing it? No, it's a structure. That's why they got ranks 33, 32, 31. It's a structure, right? It's an organization. Same thing with God. There's an organization. The problem is people who follow Christ and lost their way, we don't realize it's a structure. And what you don't realize, what they do is break up structures. This is why they so for abortions. This is why they so for the women getting their own rights and feminism. That's to break up families. You breaking up the structure. And you know what you're gonna do? You're gonna destroy the kids, and these kids are gonna be just like them, right? And worse and worse and worse, and keep going worse. They're breaking up the structures. Whether it's at jobs, right? You're breaking up a structure. Because once you break the structure, the infrastructure, and once that gets broken up, then hey, all bets off now, right? Anything is possible because the infrastructure messed up. There's no hierarchy. There's no rank, right? And that right there in itself is a problem, but people don't see that. So just know evil is very organized. It's very structured, right? And God is very structured too. The problem is people that's not connected to God, or people, or they've got to disconnected from God. They don't realize that they have infiltrated the structure, and the structure they infiltrated, they took in infirmities for themselves. So we thinking that this is the right way, but then when somebody teach you the right way, it don't sound like what you've always learned. It sounds like, oh, there's too much. You got restrictions. That's why Z, because God has restrictions because He's trying to keep you away from that. See, they have restrictions, right? But the restrictions is only for you to stay away from God. That's it. That's the only restriction. You stay away from God. So you can do whatever you want, believe in all this other stuff, as long as you stay away from God. But once you start staying from God, they gotta try to pull you out. They gotta try to demean you. You gotta do all these things, right? Because they hate God. And by default, you hating God by living in this structure, right? So just think about when you're out here and you're out here dealing with people, you're amongst people, brethren, sisters, family, friends, like I said, co-workers. You go to certain churches. Just think about hate, right? And don't think about hate far as what. Just think about people. Do people what people have disgusting? You know how they get us to fight each other about iPhones or droids or Pepsi and Coke. They have so much hate amongst us. We hate each other now. You got blacks versus blacks versus whites. You got black or dark skinned people like myself. They got them fighting light skinned people, right? It's always something, right? And all that stems from this form of hate, right? Form of lies, right? My brother's light skinned, right? We all come from the same family. You got the same parents and everything. I'm not going to hate him like that, but the world would teach me to hate that, right? I can't be in that mindset because I can't listen to the world. The world is not my teacher. The world is not my master. The world is not my savior. The Most High is, and that's what I should focus on. But when you just think about what's going on in your daily life, yourself, do you hate things? Do you hate people? Think about what you hate, and then you compare it to the scriptures. Does it align with the scriptures? Does it align with the Most High want me to do, or does it align with the world? Right? And I think when you think about those things, you'll get a better understanding of hate, and then you can avoid hating, right? And then you can hate the things that God wants you to hate, and then you can love, and you can love better, right? You can always get better. Don't ever tell somebody you can't get better. You can be the number one passer in the country, number one basketball player. You can always get better because you're not perfect, right? None of us are. So just think about that today and the rest of the week and throughout your life, right? Just always add these lessons, always add these things when you read this Bible. Am I applying this to my life? How does this apply to my life? What am I doing? Am I not doing? And go through it every day. It's like a checklist. Every day is a new day, right? And you start over and go down the list every single day. So that was today's lesson. Do anybody have any questions? Nobody any comments? Oh, big text in there. I don't know how to do that. All right, so there's no questions. Thank everybody for coming here today. There is another gathering. It's not an actual feast, but there's a gathering coming up soon on July 19th. Not now they are. Yeah, July 19th. The second gathering in the summer. I'm gonna send out the things, and it's gonna be posted on the website as well. The second gathering that we'll have, so it's the 19th, which is in 29 days, 29, 30 days, depending on, I guess, how you look at it. So we'll have that, and Bible study will continue on Monday, and then continue, having these beautiful Sabbath days that we've been having, learn about the Lord, right? So I'm going to say a prayer, and I'll let y'all go about your respective ways. Dear Heavenly Father, all praise be to you with the Ashaya Rock. I thank you for another blessed day, another blessed Sabbath. We thank you for allowing everybody to be here safe. We thank you for the edification, for your knowledge, for your wisdom, for your grace, for your mercy, and your love. And we thank you for our food, our shelter, and our raiment. And we just ask for continuation to the coming Lord of our Savior, Yeshaya. Amen. So I will see you people later. Shalom, love, God bless.
Okay, thank you.